Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. Man, what a week it has been. And I don't know about you guys, but I have some dogs that are freaked out by these thunderstorms we've been having. And last night, I was freaked out by the thunderstorm we had. I was out to dinner and I could have sworn to you that there was a crack of lightning right at the window right next to me. And that's got to be petrifying for our animals. I at least know what's going on and know that I'm going to be okay, or at least hope. And our animals don't always know exactly what's happening. And so that can be really scary. So we're here to talk with Lily from Austin and Cat, and she's going to tell you all about Austin and Cat and how these products can really help your pets, both dogs and cats, this summer on lots of different levels. So let me get Lily added here. Hey, Lily.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. And first, let's start with who is Austin and Cat? What is Austin and Cat?
So, Austin and Cat, we do functional botanical supplements for dogs and cats. And we really focus on making things ourselves that we know work for our own pets. So, Cat is still our sole owner. All of our employees have little percentages, but she is the one making the decisions. We don't have investors. So, there's not people telling us how to make our products or how we can make our bottom line bigger. We're really focused on making things that we know work. She started the company 10 years ago because she had a dog that had a need. She had a senior duck-tolling retriever named Brady. If you've seen our Brady's senior formula, that's who it's named after. And he was really, really struggling. He was just not engaging with her kids. He wasn't acting like himself. He had been an escape artist his whole life. And he was no longer trying to go on his little daily wanders, which she didn't want him to be escaping, but she definitely thought it was a little off that he wasn't trying to do that anymore. His personality just didn't feel quite the same. And she had a laundry list of medications from the vet, and nothing seemed to be working. And her husband, Tim Moxie, he is in the human CBD space, is where he comes from. And he went to a convention and he called Kat and was like, hey, there are people here talking about CBD, but for dogs. I think we should try it with Brady. And so she made a batch of just homemade hemp biscuits in the kitchen with some CBD he brought back from that convention. And within a week, Brady was a different dog. He was not necessarily accomplishing his escape attempts. He was a lot slower than he used to be, but he was at least trying, and he was moving, and he was engaging with her kids and her again. And so she really kind of dove into CBD from that point, seeing it work for her own dog. And she had Austin, who we still have as our main taste tester. Over 10 years old now. He was just a puppy at the time, and he is that black lab that plays fetch until he drops. He just never stops. So she started using CBD for him at the same time to help him focus during training, and saw a big difference with him there. So we've just continued kind of that same legacy and idea throughout our time as a company. There's only 10 employees that work for us. We're really small, including all of the people that make every single product that you see. So really small team, just outside of Seattle. And we make everything ourselves with that same kind of mission. So any formula you see, we created it because a dog needed it. Like our Bailey's No More Wiggles that we'll talk about for calming. That was created because one of Kat's dogs, Bailey, who's a Springer Spaniel, was afraid of everything. So she tried to make a formula that would work specifically for him. And like our Bacos, that's our hip and joint. Her best friend's dog is a Bernese Mountain Dog who was not getting around well. So she decided to make a specialized formula just for him.
That's cool. They're all inspired by actual real life animals. And I know, all of us and our customers who are watching and everything, the one thing we hate to see is our animals suffer. We don't want to see them scared. We don't want to see them in pain. And we certainly don't want to see them sick or infirmed in any way. So I can definitely speak to a testament of having seen dramatic results with CBD and botanicals, mushrooms, things like that, things of that nature. So I can definitely appreciate the difference that it makes. Now, you said they are made outside of Seattle, like where you guys are located, or they made at another facility?
So we're just south of Seattle. That's where our facility is, and everything is done from start to finish there. So we make all of our products there. We package them there. We ship them out there. So if you, get your order in, it's gone straight from us to the distributor to you. So everything comes right from us. We make it all in-house ourselves.
Okay, very cool.
So
Now, and you guys make tinctures, you make biscuits, and then you also make powders. And
yes.
so maybe really good to talk about some differentiating factors between the three different product kind of categories.
Yeah. So the kind of different products that we make, the CBD products will be the oils and the chews. So the oils are like in these little boxes here. And CBD, to absorb well, it needs to be paired with a fat. So we find doing an oil or a chew with lots of like peanut butter or MCT coconut oil has the best absorption for those. And the difference between those two really just comes down to preference. What's going to work best for you and your pet? Oil will absorb a little faster because it doesn't need to digest. You can just stick it right in their mouth or add it to a small treat. So usually CBD that's in an oil, in about 15 minutes, you'll start to see it kind of working. Whereas a chew, you'll have closer to 45 minutes before it starts to work. And a lot of pet parents, it really just comes down to what's going to be easiest for them. So I use the oils because I just add them to my pet's food. And one of my dogs is super, super picky. So he won't even eat cheese.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's something else. So the chews aren't really it for me for him. But then one of my best friends, she can't remember to give her dog supplements, but if she uses the chews, her dog will, after like 3 days, decided, well, it's time for my treat. So he reminds her to give his supplements. So for her, the chews work great. And then we also have those powders, our non-CBD powders.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be like this senior powder here. They're a microground powder, and those are going to be just a really potent mix of botanicals. So the calming version, for example, it's non-CBD. So we've added 450 milligrams of ashwagandha per half teaspoon, so that you're getting really powerful calming support without the CBD. And that I find works best for if you have like a lot of pets and you'd go through the regular functional oils or the chews really fast. You can use one of those functional non-CBD powders and pair it with like a high potency oil. Like we have a 1200 milligram oil that works really well for that. Or for the occasional customer who like their vet just really isn't on board with CBD yet. Or if they're on like a really strict medication regimen. Because CBD, it works well with almost any medication, but one of my dogs, for example, she has had cancer 3 times. She's completely fine right now.
It's okay.
She's my lemon. She's just really unlucky. But when she had to have chemo, she was not supposed to have CBD at the exact same time. So during that time, we just used our functional powders and then got right back on our CBD train after she had had her treatments. So for those kind of cases, it works really well. And then we have some non-CBD oils that are in larger bottles that just came out too for kind of omega fatty acid support.
Yeah, we do. We carry those as well. And I know that Kat was just in the stores, so she got to see everything that was here and got to see our layout. And it was a joy to meet her and to kind of hear more intensely about Austin and Kat. Now, you were talking about the powders and the oils. If you use the powders, could you use the oils in conjunction with them?
Yes. So all of our products are designed to be able to mix and match. So you can definitely kind of customize a routine to your pet. I use my dogs as examples a lot because, we do a lot.
Examples. I do.
Examples, unfortunately. We use almost every product in my house. So for my cancer girl, for obvious reasons, she gets a lot of supplements. So she'll get our senior powder senior powder once a day. She gets our hip and joint oil twice a day. She gets our omega oil, our algae oil. She gets that twice a day. And occasionally she gets our chews, our No More Wiggles chews, just as needed for calming. So we kind of bounce around through the products, and it's totally fine to do that. All of the ingredients are very safe to mix and match together.
Okay, very cool. And you had mentioned the oils would take effect a little bit more rapidly than the treats or the powders. And so I certainly am drawing attention to that. So the people who are listening to us, if they're listening more intently for the purpose of thunderstorms and fireworks or travel, anxiety, things like that, you definitely want to take note that it's going to take a little bit of time to take effect. So do not wait until 5 minutes before you're walking out the door with the expectation it's going to work in 5 minutes. You definitely want to give a little bit more time for treats and powders to take effect on the body. And then for oils, you certainly don't have to wait as long. What would be your recommendation for someone who maybe has tried some CBD products and said that they didn't feel like maybe the dosing on the product was effective? Do you guys have recommendations for additional dosing or half dosing?
Yeah, so a cool thing with our products is they're THC free. So you can dose as high as you want. You can give more. And something I found over the years is that some dogs just need more. They just metabolize it more quickly. And also, not all CBD products are created equal. So some CBD products out there will be what's called an isolate. And that means that all that's in it is the CBD or another cannabinoid compound. So like just CBN, if you've ever heard that one mentioned, or just CBG, things like that. But it's just one single compound. Um, and part of what makes CBD work so well is the plethora of different plant compounds in there. So in a really high quality CBD product, you'll find CBD as the main component, but then you'll also see small amounts of CBN, CBG, CBC, and terpenes, lots of different terpenes on their test results. And when you have all of those things working together, then you're going to have a lot better results than you would using just a regular old isolate. So when I was at working as a store manager, I was ordering pretty much every CBD that I could find to try with my dogs. And I did find same dose with some oils versus others, completely different results, because some of them, the compounds in that oil were just not kind of up to snuff. So if you haven't tried a broad spectrum oil like our oil that's going to have lots of different plant compounds, or if you're not sure, then I would definitely recommend trying something like that and just starting with the starting dose. But if you give that starting dose, which we recommend 2 milligrams per 10 pounds, which I know that sounds a little confusing, but there are like instructions on here. So it'll
It's on the dosing. Yeah, it's on the little.
yeah, you don't have to be a super exact and like use the calculator or anything, but starting with that recommended dosing, and you do that like once or twice and you just see no difference, then you could have one of those rare dogs that really does need extra CBD. And I recommend upping it by like a half a dose every time you try it and just seeing how they do. There's no risk of overdose since there's no THC. So border collies and doodles in particular, if you have one of those breeds, you may find that you have to go with a much higher dose. There are other dogs out there, but those are the breeds in particular that I've seen generally metabolize it a little faster.
Maybe it's all that energy. um, to talk more specifically about the No More Wiggles, because that is in our fireworks kit that we're sending, that we have for sale at our stores. And it's the treats, not the tinctures or the oils that we have in those bags. But talk more specifically about the other items that are in there besides the CBD.
Yes. So one of the really cool things about the No More Wiggles is that it's not just CBD. There's also calming botanicals like valerian and passion flower. So other calming herbs that are all going to work together to bring the nervous system to a really balanced place. All of them can contain different plant compounds that work together for calming. So chamomile has something in it called apigenin, which helps to balance the nervous system and kind of brings a sense of calm. And CBD on its own, it does do some calming, but when you kind of use those calming botanicals, you can direct the kind of effect that you get is what I've found. Um, so the No More Wiggles is designed to not to make them sleepy, but just help take the edge off. And if you think like when you're stressed and you drink a really nice cup of chamomile tea, you will feel a little bit calmer. And there's some really cool science behind why that is. So it's kind of like giving our dogs a really calming, relaxing cup of tea to help them deal with the oncoming fireworks. And something I also like to mention with fireworks and thunderstorms in particular, the No More Wiggles, it can work, right away within the first dose. You should see some effects. Um, you just want to use it, early enough that it's starting to absorb before your adrenaline gets going. So with the chews, I'd say like 45 minutes beforehand. But the earlier that you start using it, the better, because we don't always know when that adrenaline is going to start going. So there are things that our dogs can kind of sense and feel that we can't. So they may know there's an oncoming thunderstorm when we haven't even quite figured it out yet. So for dogs in kind of an area where there's a really strong thunderstorm season, I usually recommend you want to give that No More Wiggles morning and evening, twice a day, every day through fireworks season. There's no reason that you have to do that, and you don't like you can get away with not doing that. But calming is a lot easier than recalming. So if we can head off that stress and help keep our dogs from ever getting to that really heightened point, that's kind of the goal.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, and I was filming a news segment recently about fireworks and thunderstorms. And so, what I was explaining to people then, which is also what you're talking about, is don't wait until July 3rd to see what's going to work. Start working now and start dosing now so that individuals can start testing and making sure that they have a product that's going to work for their pet's needs.
Definitely. And also the cool thing with CBD is it doesn't have to build up in their system. It'll work right away, but it does work better the longer that you give it. So if you have a dog that has always been highly stressed by fireworks and thunderstorms and nothing seems to work, part of it could be that they just need a really good foundation built before the scary things are happening. Because it'll work right away with a lot of receptors in the body, but the longer you give it, the more that it can balance out those systems that can kind of control stress in their body. So the longer you use it, kind of more you'll find my motto is long story long, sorry. But moral of the story, the longer you use it, the better it's going to work, and the more likely that you're going to have kind of a stress-free holiday season. And I live in kind of a rural area also, so something I like to mention is I don't always know that 4th of July is when the first firework will go off.
Yeah.
And we will have a very different experience if I manage to give my first doses of calming products before the first pop goes off. So I start well in advance if because sometimes 3 or 4 days before, a couple neighbors will randomly set off some bottle rockets or something. And then we have just a whole disaster that we need to kind of recoup from.
Yeah, it's harder to control it once it gets out the gate,
Yes.
for sure. Now, so talk a little bit about your blends. You have No More Wiggles, you have the senior blend, you have a hip and joint. Let's talk about all of those, and you have them in both the oils and in the powders. So, and then of course in the treats. So, talk about each one of those and kind of some of the key things that are in there to really help.
So I will give a little forewarning that I'm probably going to say every single product is my favorite, because as soon as I start talking about each one, then I'm like, oh yeah, that's my favorite one. So, but I do mean it for all of them. So I might get a little repetitive on that. So first, the No More Wiggles that we've been talking about, that's our most powerful calming support. So there's a chew, an oil, and a powder. And the chew and the oil, you should get very, very similar results with. You'll notice on all of these, the ingredients on each format are just ever so slightly different, because we want the results to be the same. So we have to slightly adjust for kind of baking with our chews. We want to kind of account for anything that will be lost by heat. And then with the powders, and since there's no CBD, we adjust the ingredient profile to kind of account for that as well. So you'll see slightly different, but the goal is for them to have the same result. So the No More Wiggles is for calming. I always like to clarify, it's not meant to make dogs tired. It's not to stop energy. So if you have like a really wily puppy, it's not going to make them stop being a wily puppy. Like they'll probably still be chewing on you and bouncing off the walls, but hopefully they'll be able to settle better once they've had their, daily walk, or any kind of anxiety. So if we're dealing with crate training or something, that will be more controlled. It'll help them deal with it better. And then there's our senior formula, which is my favorite formula. So the senior formula is designed as like all over support. A lot of senior dogs, we find that it's tricky to get them to take more than one supplement. They start to get a little more finicky, or you end up like me and you have an entire cabinet that is completely full of supplements to just try and keep them feeling well. And we wanted to kind of condense that down so that it's manageable. You only have to give one thing, especially for the average pet parent. Like if you're busy, not everyone is as crazy as me and has time to sit there and like fuss over 10 different supplements. So if we can get as much support in one place as we can, for seniors especially, that's going to have a big impact. So that's what the senior formula was designed for. So a little bit of heart support, eye support, a little bit of calming support, some urinary, kidney, and hip and joint. It's covering kind of all of your bases with the senior pet. If you have a senior pet that's specifically dealing with hip and joint issues, like they have severe arthritis, then I would move more towards the hip and joint product, because there's just more that we can pack into it for that. But if they're having a little bit of everything, they're just slowing down, they're getting those cloudy eyes, they're just not feeling like themselves, the senior is a really good place to start. And that's safe for any age of dog, but any dog that's over 6 at this point is kind of considered a senior, unfortunately. That seems so early to me, but that's just kind of where we're at now, with a lot of dogs. So the sooner that we can give preventative care for seniors, the better. And then the hip and joint formula, which I mentioned, this is also my favorite formula, because the oil version of this formula, you'll notice, is bright, bright red. If you ever have tried the hip and joint formula, the Bacchus hip and joint, that oil is super bright red because it has an ingredient in it called astaxanthin. Let's try saying that 10 times fast. But astaxanthin is an extract from algae, and it's actually something that the algae kind of creates to protect itself from UV radiation. So when it's in very, very stressful, high sun environments, it creates this really powerful antioxidant. It's one of the most powerful antioxidants ever discovered. And we found that for humans and for animals, that when we take this orally, we're able to use a lot of those benefits in our bodies, that kind of the plant, the algae itself was trying to get. So really great for binding free radicals, which can help with things like inflammation, just general aging processes, because oxidization is what's happening in our body kind of at all times, and in our pet's body. Anytime we breathe, there's oxidization happening, and that process is natural, but that's the kind of process that leads us to age, that leads us to change, that causes inflammation. And with kind of all the things in our environment now, and our diets, and our pets' diets, that process tends to skew a little bit too far in the balance of more oxidization happening, and our natural antioxidants not being enough to kind of combat that. So by adding a really powerful antioxidant back into the mix, we're able to kind of bring that balance back to where it needs to be, and get inflammation more under control. So astaxanthin's amazing. Every time that I like think I know everything about it, a new study will come out showing that it has another benefit. So eye support is another one, hip and joint, just general aging support. There's some really cool studies showing that it can enhance the effects of omegas. So all kinds of stuff, but especially for mobility, it's super, super helpful. Um, and the chews will kind of do the same thing as the oil formula, but we can't get that astaxanthin in there. So we've added extra glucosamine. We've added extra boswellia. Boswellia is frankincense. I think we're all kind of like at least vaguely familiar with that word, but it can actually help with soft tissue health and with pain and inflammation. It's kind of like a natural aspirin. And then the powder version is going to have things like green lip mussel in it, to really lubricate the joints. And you can use all those formulas together. Like I do have customers with pets with really advanced mobility needs that will kind of stack those formulas. But each of them is designed to get really powerful results on its own.
Whenever I do a live like this, I'm always like, okay, I'm going to buy all of those things because my Newman needs everything. He is over 16 and he would be offended to be called a senior, but he is. And especially in the last 6 months, we've definitely seen his mobility become problematic, and seen him, like you said, just not as much himself. And so I definitely, sitting here listening to you, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get the powder, the chews, and the tinctures today, and see if we can't get him started and see what might give him some relief from senioritis in a bad way.
Definitely the astaxanthin is,
yeah, that's what that sounds like, a really cool thing for him. So I'll definitely get him started on that. Would you have any other tips and tricks as far as using these? Oh yeah. So Kat is saying, I told Kat this really funny story. I get this subscription box from a publication every month. It's a retail publication. It's for retailers like us to see new products. And it's a really cool subscription box. And I got a subscription box, and the No More Wiggles treats were in the box. And I generally have I usually have some dachshunds up on the bed. I have Merida, Aurora Rose, and Hey Hey are usually up on the bed with me while I'm doing the Zoom call with everybody who got the box. And when I'm doing that, it's always big entertainment because everybody wants to know what my dachshunds are doing while we're on the call, because they are usually like trying to jump in the box, they're stealing things, always chaos. Well, I pulled out the No More Wiggles and I'm like, oh yeah, we sell these. I have the No More Wiggles. And I gave some to everybody. They had just been fighting over things. It had just been a big old catastrophe. I literally gave everybody a No More Wiggles. And then all of a sudden, like 5 minutes later, I'm like, the No More Wiggles is working. Everybody went to sleep.
why is it so
fighting? It was so funny. And I mean, it worked. It was magic. They all went to sleep, usually at a time where they were all fighting over, because this box has chews in it and treats and pet food samples and all kinds of fun things, which they look forward to kind of going through the box with me. But it was nice to have them all calm and relaxed laying on the bed. But it was just so funny because it occurred to me like, oh my gosh, they're not trying to dive in this box anymore.
It is funny. I think when we start using things to help keep our dogs like calm and relaxed, it can be so easy for us to not realize right away that it's doing something until all of a sudden we're like, oh, where'd the chaos go?
Yeah.
I'm not mad about it, but where did the chaos go?
Yeah, and when like their mobility has been bad, sometimes it creeps up on you, that it's gotten bad. Because I would say that, my Newman's age has definitely crept up on me. And all of a sudden I kind of turned around and was like, oh gosh, he really is a super senior now, and his walking is limited. He's a lot less mobile. So I definitely am going to try him on some of these things. I did give him some hip and joint treats last night, some Austin and cat hip and joint. But I definitely think I'm going to add in some more things for him, and see if we can't make him more mobile. See if we can't make the problems a little bit better, because it doesn't have to be that way. And that's what I want. Sometimes we are like, oh, well, he's 16, and we kind of define it away because of his age. But the reality is, just because he's 16, he doesn't have to be that way. There are things that can help him be better than his age. Because there's certainly on paper, when I do his blood work, there's not that level of things wrong with him. So I can definitely make him better and want to make him better. I hate to see that he's gotten to be such a senior.
It is something I hear a lot. I will pop in and do some of our like customer service emails sometimes. Like I said, we're so small. So if you email Austin and Kat, you might be hearing from me or from Kat. But that's something that I hear a lot that I do hate to hear is people will be like, oh yeah, he's not doing super great, but he's 11, which is true, but also it doesn't have to be like that. We can do a lot of things to try and help them feel more comfortable. And Austin, he's he's over 10 years old, and we call him Benjamin Button. Because, and this is, some of it is luck of the draw, but there's a lot we can do to try and like give them the best benefit. And he still absolutely goes bananas after that ball. He does not slow down at all. Every time that I see Austin, I think that he might be younger than the last time that I saw him. And he is the most CBD'd dog in America. So, and our omega oils, one of them that we just came out with, the Austin's Everything Oil. Kat kind of put that together for Austin because she did notice one thing that he was slowing down with was his coat was not looking as glossy and liquid as it used to. So we put together an omega, and now he's back to being like basically made of like liquid. He is so
Well, and to add to that, I mean, most forms of pet food, even if you're feeding a raw diet, omegas are so fragile that adding in an extra omega supplement is really important. Even for a very well-fed, raw-fed diet, those omegas are so fragile. They don't always last the freezing and defrosting stage, and so it is great a great way to be able to add it back in.
Definitely. I've done homemade raw feeding for almost a decade. And I'm one of the crazy raw feeders that has like, I have a spreadsheet and everything is like NRC, like National Research Council balanced. I'm like sitting in there looking at everything. It's excessive. I will. But even for me, and my family also, long story long, we have we raise beef cattle. So I have like the, grass-fed, amazing beef. And I still find that I need to add extra omegas so that we can really get the proper balance for inflammation support and aging support. It can be so crucial. And pet foods as well, kind of the guidelines that they have for creating their formulas, they do allow a lot more heavy on the omega-6 than what we would like to see ideally for inflammation. So a lot of times, even if you have a pet food that is really high quality, it'll often lean a little bit too far into the omega-6s. So if we can add extra omega-3s and bring it back to a place that's kind of optimal for inflammation, that's fantastic.
For sure, the way to go. Well, any last words that you'd like to get in and make sure we cover about Austin and Kat?
The main thing would just be this time of year, let's start super early with any kind of calming support. And also, this isn't necessarily Austin and Kat, but if you have a dog that's really stressed, check out things like licky mats and puzzle toys to go along with your CBD. Anything we can do to get their entire nervous system balanced. The CBD and calming botanicals can really help give you a good kind of foundation. And when you add in other types of enrichment, you can kind of bring that parasympathetic nervous system into balance too. So don't count on just one thing. Let's pack it together. The more relaxed our dogs can be, the better.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
and our fireworks kits they include the treats, but they also include a lick mat with calming
awesome.
peanut butter. And for dogs, they have chews in there as well from Raw Dog. So, kind of something to chew on when they're anxious, a great stimulation as well. So, they do have a wealth of calming products in there for people to try out. And you can certainly pair that with an oil or a powder and start working. They're intended to kind of be a starting place
Mhm.
so that you can investigate what works with your pet before we get to the fireworks. And unfortunately, we're already to the thunderstorms, although thankfully, I don't think today, but we
Okay.
are already majorly into thunderworks season around here. But this is a great time for you to be able to work on this so that all year round you can help with that anxiety. Um,
Yes, that's my final note then. Check out the fireworks kits.
yeah, the fireworks kits are amazing.
That's
And
exactly the routine I try to get people on.
yeah, they really are amazing, and will go a long way to helping your pet with the stress of thunderstorms and fireworks, and helping to decode what's going to work. Well, we love Austin and Kat. It was great having Kat here with us a couple of weeks ago, and to have her in at both store locations so she could see all that we're about. And of course, we have carried Austin and Kat for a very long time. We love your products and love the ability really to be able to give not only the oil blend, but to be able to have the layer of the treat and the powder, I think is such an amazing benefit for pets out there, especially having options without CBD that customers can try as well. So, well, thank you. If you're listening and you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments and we can refer them back to Lily for you if we don't have the answer. And definitely get in here this weekend and find yourself some Austin and Cat solutions for your pet. We did not talk a lot about cats. I will say, and thinking about that, you guys do have cat specific oils.
Yes, we do. We have a feline oil. It's 150 milligrams, and it's based in sardine and pollock. So it's very palatable for kitties. And then we do have some lower strength, like our Everyday Wellness 100 and 300 milligrams. Those are in a salmon oil. So those are cat safe as well. All of our products are cat safe. And I do have a couple of like very adventurous cats who will try the chews. But they're peanut butter and apples, so they're not always the most palatable for kitties. So the oils are awesome. With calming for kitties, one thing I like to say is starting early is extra important because with a dog, a lot of times if you just can't get them to take CBD, you can just kind of hold their face and pop the dropper in their mouth, and it'll be fine. They'll forgive you almost immediately. But with a cat, the amount of stress that's going to cause them is just going to kind of outweigh the calming effect. I find they're going to get so stressed and worked up. They're going to be mad at you for days if you put in their mouth, and that's just not great. So with kitties, if you try to give them the oil mixed in a little food or a treat and they don't initially like it, you want to have time to slowly sneak it in. Because cats are such imprint feeders that sometimes they just don't want to try something just because it's new. So if they won't try it, you can add literally 1 or 2 drops to their full serving of food and mix it in so they can barely taste it. And then the next meal, you add like 4 drops and mix it in, and then slowly add it up over a few days. And eventually they're getting the full dose and they're like, oh, I actually do like this. But you have to kind of trick them into trying it sometimes with cats. So extra important to start early. And unless it's, an absolute kind of last resort, don't force them to take it. Try some alternatives, try mixing with food, try adding to a treat. Because that stress and that adrenaline that they get from it is not gonna be ideal for anybody, and they will be mad at you.
Well, thank you for joining us, Lily. I really appreciate it. And for all of you, if you have questions for Austin and Kat, just put them in the comments and we'll be happy to relay those questions. And we will definitely look forward to seeing you guys again soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, any questions you guys have, add them to the comments, or you can call Austin and Kat or email us anytime. Like I said, it'll probably be Kat or I that responds to you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lily. Bye bye.
Bye.